Welcome to How to Process 1099s in Sage Intacct. We're going to go over preparing for 1099 season. We're going to go over 1099 preparation and the different methods you can use to file your 1099s. So let's jump into the preparation part for your 1099 season. So first, we're going to check and show a couple of things you need to have turned on in Intacct. So first decision you need to make is if you're going to issue your 1099s at the top level or at the entity level. We're going to go into subscriptions here and show you the multi-entity management configuration to turn on issuing 1099s separately by each entity. So if this checkbox, issue a separate 1099 per entity, is checked, you are going to have 1099s print for each entity level in your drop-down menu here. Otherwise, the company, legal name, address, and tax ID of the top-level entity will be printed. The second thing you want to do is review your vendors to make for sure that your vendors are correctly set up on the Vendor Setup tab. So let's navigate here for an example. On the Additional Information tab here, we have a 1099 name, which is the legal name, and your 1099 setups of your boxes. So first thing I want to point out is if you put in a 1099 name, it will print first. The print as name will print second. So if this ABC supplier has a legal name of something different, you can type the legal name here and it will print this one first and the print as name second. If they're the same, it will only print one. Okay, now for the box setup, you're going to come in here and set your form. And then the boxes will change depending on which form you pick here. So notice how my boxes have changed. So on the NEC form, I'm going to have my box 1. And I'm going to have an entity box here if I have turned on the issue a separate 1099 per entity in the company multi-entity management area. This will be used here if you're entering in initial values for this initial year. So if you've transitioned to Intacct in 2023 and you want to put in initial values, this would be the area that you would do it. So I've selected my GC. I want to put in initial values and hit save. Okay, so you want to go through your vendors and make sure you have your settings correct here and the legal name filled out if required. I do want to point out that in vendor types, you can set the 1099 settings in the vendor types. So let's say I have a supplier here and I want to set a 1099 setting. So let's say I have a parent vendor type of LLC and I put a supplier type underneath as a child type. I can set this box to be the NEC box 1 non-employee comp, for example. So that when I add a new vendor and I pick that type, those boxes will appear on the 1099 additional information on the additional information tab. So for example, and pick the type here. And notice the 1099 eligible box is here and appears here once you initiate and add a vendor. The prior screen I was on, this has disappeared because I've already created the vendor. Okay, so once I save, you'll see it'll look like and I have a smart rule on, by the way, for top level vendors. Someone wanted to use those as entity level only. So we've set that up as a smart rule, but now I can save again. And now you can see that is pre-filled in my boxes the way I want them. Okay, so now we're going to run a report, 1099 report for the year to double check my amounts and my vendors. Okay, so we're going to run the 1099 report. For the current year. And you can see it's just giving me a soft warning to select an entity because it's going to put them all together. But for this sample company, we've got just GC entity payments showing here. So if you have a different box or category here than what you would like, then we need to do some corrections to change that on the vendor setup as shown previously, and to make changes to the transactional level detail. So the AP bills, for example. Also, if you want to view all payments from your entity for the year, you can pick Show All here. So you can see if you accidentally missed a vendor, missed categorizing them as a 1099 eligible vendor. So now you can see there are more vendors here, no 1099 category, that went over the $600 limit, for example. Okay, so if you want to review your entire list of payments for the year, you just toggle down here to Show All. You can also do such things as excluding credit card payments or include bills paid with credits or advances or not. Okay, so some different prompts, as you can see. Okay, now let's say you find a vendor that is the same vendor, for example. While you cannot merge vendors in Intacct, you will update the vendor information on one of the vendors in the vendor setup initial values area. So the way you do that is you will go into the additional information tab here and hit your Form 1099, pick an entity if you have that on, and change your initial values here. Okay, so to add the two vendor totals together. Okay, then you would more than likely inactivate your other vendor. Also, let's say you have a vendor where some of the amounts on their bills are 1099 reportable and some are not. You want to make sure that your settings are turned on in accounts payable to enable the override upon entry on the AP bills. So you want to make sure these overrides are on so that you can do some changes on the accounts payable bill screen to say whether that bill is 1099 reportable or not. So for example, on this AP bill screen here, you have the 1099 flag, and then you also have what box you would like that to be changed to if it's not the same as the vendor setup. Okay. So if they have materials they're charging you for and they're also doing labor separately, you can do two line items, one flagged as a 1099 and one as not flagged as a 1099. Also, Intacct has a way to update the transactions as 1099 eligible or ineligible after the fact. So if you've already entered in some accounts payable bills into the system, but the 1099 settings were incorrect, if we go over to a vendor and look at and change the 1099 settings, it's going to give us some options of, do we want to update or not update? So I'll show you that here. So there's no 1099 info on this particular vendor, but when I go ahead and change it here, and hit save, it asks me, do I want to update the transactions for this vendor for the current year only based on the modified 1099 info, or current and prior year, or don't update at all. Okay, so you have some options there on what you would like to do. Now let's say that you had brought vendors in, but you did not bring in the 1099 values if you implemented and deployed Intacct this year, then there's an import utility you can run to bring those values in. So if we go over here and look at the company import data area, you have an accounts payable opening balances template that you can bring in those 1099 opening balances, okay, through the Excel import utility, just FYI. Now, depending on your settings, you can reclassify or edit a bill to get the 1099 box correct. So, for example, if I don't have a payment on a bill and I have my settings and accounts payable configuration set to allow me to edit bills, I can change this amount here. I can put the 1099 option on, for example, or if you have the reclassify bills option turned on, then you can also use the reclassify option as well to fix your 1099 at the transaction level. Okay, so at the AP bill level. As an additional option, you can go into the AP vendor and you can set up and change the 1099 information like I've shown here. Get to the top level here. Like I've shown here in the additional information tab to correct those values if you would rather do that instead of each transaction or correcting the transaction. So you would come in here and change your values here in this screen. Okay, and you can do it for your different entities. Okay. Now let's say you've got the corrections you think you need done. You're going to rerun your 1099 report to make sure the corrections look correct. And you're going to then save this report, either print or memorize, and save it here in Intacct. I highly suggest doing the process and store option here so it stores the hard copy in Intacct. Okay. For more information on 1099s and corrections and such, run the help and support, help on this page option, and read through the 1099 informational area. There are step-by-step guides, but there's a lot of information here on troubleshooting your 1099s if you need to make corrections, for example. Okay. All right, now let's get into the preparation of 1099s. So we're going to create a batch, and we're going to then review the batch, and then we're going to show some different options here on how to file your 1099s. Okay, now I'm going to navigate over here to the 1099 file export, and I'm going to pick an entity here, make sure my year is what I want up there, and I'm going to export to Excel. And now I can pull up my information here. So it'll come out in the form like this. I've got all my information that I need right here in Excel. You can also use CSV as well if you're using a third-party vendor that requires CSV. Okay, so you review that, export, make sure that that looks good, and you can then use that to load onto your third-party vendor websites and complete the e-file on that third-party vendor's website. Okay, so that process would be driven in their software, but the file that you need would be the Excel file here. Okay. Now, if you want to use the Tax Bandits software that integrates with Sage Intacct, then we would begin the process with them by making sure that I've got my subscription to cloud services turned on. In here in the company subscriptions, Sage Cloud Services. Make sure that's turned on. Okay. And Then we would enable the Tax Bandits software to be integrated with Sage. That is located in the configuration of accounts payable right here. Then you're going to create a Tax Bandits account on the Tax Bandits website. How you do this is important, so make sure to read this help topic here on how to create the Tax Bandits account for e-filing. Okay. Once you have created that Tax Bandits account, you're going to come into Accounts Payable, and you're going to go to 1099 e-file submissions. You're going to hit Add. You're going to pick the appropriate year, pick an entity. If applicable, exclude your credit card payments, and then you're going to pick your form. And you're going to select any other boxes or filters you want here, and you're going to hit e-file. The e-file with Tax Bandits pop-up appears to show you what has been selected, and you're going to hit the e-file button. It's going to ask you to log into your Tax Bandits account. After you log in, the batch is sent to Tax Bandits. Depending on how many files are in the batch, it can take some time for it to send to Tax Bandits. Go ahead and refresh the page once you have done this process. And you can check your status here again by going back to the 1099 e-file submission page. Once the batch arrives in Tax Bandits, it will verify your 1099 information and show you if there are any forms that need to be updated. Tax Bandits handles the federal and state filing, sends the forms to the recipients, and grants online access for those recipients. In Tax Bandits, you will see a dashboard that appears where you can view the forms sent in the batch and which forms are ready for e-filing. You can resolve errors in Tax Bandits, but it does not correct the information in Intact. So if you choose to do that, be sure to go back into Intact and correct any vendor information. Here's the website to go to create your Tax Bandits account. And remember to read this article to make sure that you set up the account the way that is needed for your company. All right, so the third option that you can do is you can print 1099s from Intact directly. You do need to order 1099s from intact.dsa-direct.com in order to get the correct form. These forms are the ones that work with Intact the best, so be sure to use this link to order those forms. So once you have exported and run your 1099 report and reviewed and made sure those are all correct, you can print your 1099s on your forms that you've ordered. There's also a help article on printing the tax information on 1099s right out of Intact in the help menu. So if you need some alignment, a little bit of alignment with your printer, there's different troubleshooting areas in here and articles in here in order to help you get those aligned correctly. So in order to print, we're going to navigate to the accounts payable area, print 1099 form. You're going to again select filters. You have some alignment offsets down here. Again, use the help article I showed. I'm going to pick an entity here, and we're going to hit print. So now you can see the fields. You could print this out. Highly suggested print this out for test alignment. Hold it up to your form and make adjustments with the alignment offsets down at the bottom here. Once you print your 1099s, you're going to print your 1096 form. Again, you're going to use your filters, your year. Be sure to run this the same way. Any check boxes, you're going to hit print. You're going to see your 1096 form here. Be sure to double check that the total works out correctly along with the total number of 1099s here. Again, use the help menu to help you print your 1099s and 1096s or any information you need on 1099s. Also, don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. Thank you.